Welcome back. It's 28 minutes away from 2. Now, in this era of modern technology and online connectivity, we'd be forgiven that thinking that has spelled an absolute end to the real publications that we used to enjoy. Magazines, that is, printed on real paper. Remember them? That you could read on the train or in the cafe. Well, that's not the case. They haven't they haven't died at all. We have 3 guests in the studio to tell us why. Very good afternoon to Joshua Fanning, who's publisher of a local magazine called CityMag. You've probably seen. Hi, Josh.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Farrin Foster is from City Standard. That's a community journalism platform. Hello there.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in. And also Charlotte Chambers is the founder of a print and online magazine called Kiddo, which is very colourful indeed. I've got a copy here. Hi there.
Hi.
Thanks for all coming in. All 3 of these publications, you've probably heard of them. They're part of the next generation of the media in Adelaide. Let's begin with the oldest of the 3. That's CityMag.
Yeah, very old at 5 years.
Yeah, launched in 2013. So, yeah, well, in this day and age, that's probably a reasonable, time span.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how much has changed really in the last 2 years. It's been sort of an exponential shift in digital and connectivity and users and their expectations about what they're going to get from their media. They want it to be two-way.
Yeah, that's right. And to be able to crash into that area and actually make a go of it is quite an achievement for all 3 of you sitting here today. Now, particularly with CityMag, it's just been bought, hasn't it, by SA Life?
Oh, no, it's a company acquired SA Life and
it's the other way around.
At the same time.
Oh, Solstice Media. Yeah, Solstice Media in Daly has purchased it.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
It is. It was a great opportunity that sort of came along. We'd been working in the digital sphere for a long time. They're much more advanced in the digital realm. And so that relationship just really blossomed over time and it made sense to move forward together.
Well, let's wind back a little bit, wind the calendar back. Why, in 2013, in this new era of electronic media, did you decide to launch a magazine? What were you thinking, Josh?
It's a very, very good question. But I think the way that print can affect people still hasn't really changed. I think the real difficulty for us is, distribution and making sure we're in relevant places. I think it's much easier. Kiddo magazine is free as well, so we can really go and follow the habits of our readers. Now, we've learnt through trial and error that you want to be in cafes and not bars. Bars are good for coasters, but in a cafe,
not much reading goes on in the bars.
No. Soggy newspapers in bars.
Yeah.
And so I think, through that experience, and I've also been in media for 10 years, so it was sort of my 3rd print publication, and I think we rolled a lot of our learnings. One was international, and so we brought the best of the best and put it all into CityMag.
So despite the rumours, there is still a theory about the tactile magazine that you can actually hold in your hand and fold up and put under your arm.
Absolutely, and it's more than a theory. Google and Galaxy did a poll in 2016 on millennials and did some research. Now, this is Google, and they said millennials prefer to hold print in their hands. They weren't just talking about magazines, they were talking about direct mail marketing and everything. I think when an envelope comes through the mail addressed to you, opening that up is something special as well. So it is, you can't just throw everything out. As new things evolve, you just need to concentrate on the quality and telling stories that matter.
It's interesting too, isn't it? And this applies to all 3 of you. The messenger, for example, doesn't always get delivered these days. You have to purchase it. This is something that you actually, on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, actually going looking for, a magazine like yours.
Yeah, I think it's, as Josh said, it's about having it available within the kind of the habits of your readership. And I think having, even like the messenger, and I still get it delivered. I'm in the eastern suburbs. I get it delivered and I still pick it up and I read it. And I might have a flick through. Sometimes there might be something that catches my eye a little bit more, than other times. But I think having you kind of have to just make sure that your distribution is relevant to your market. I mean, I have probably a very different distribution model to what CityMag does, especially being in the family market, but there is some crossover there as well. The tangibility of print, I think, is incredibly relevant, and I think it's appreciated more now and moving forward in this day and age than maybe what it was 2 or 3 years ago. I've been in media for many years.
Yes.
And I've seen, we started in a print publication called Rip It Up Publishing with Margie Budick, and that was a weekly music publication, you might remember.
I do, yep.
And there was no internet really when we started. We just launched a very basic website, but the information wasn't there. And then through crazy things like MySpace and Facebook and the relevance of print did get lost a little bit in that period. And I think there's definitely a trend back to print. I mean, the internet is an incredibly busy place, and taking time out to pick up a print publication and have that headspace of just 5 minutes of just concentrating on that one physical, emotional thing with print is incredibly valuable. And it is a bit of downtime, and I think it's just about making sure that content is high quality and local
and relevant
and and niche to whatever demographic you're in. And the feedback, so we only launched in October last year. And the feedback that we're getting from not just our readers who are Adelaide families, but also from, people in the market, support from CityMag as well for what we're doing, which has been amazing. But, also from the agencies and our advertisers is they love having a print publication because, again, the internet is a very busy place.
And now the Kiddo magazine, I've got it here. It's a delightful piece. Obviously a very, very specific target for you, which is, parents and kids and families. It's free.
It is.
What, with all of your experience in the media, why, like Josh, did you actually decide to go down this path and produce a free magazine?
I'd never crossed my mind to not do a print publication. It was always, my business model was to produce something that was tangible and free. Print's had a lot of bad, a bad rap over many years of big glossies going down and merging. And, I think that's where Adelaide is incredibly rich in free print media. And I think we kind of probably have more per capita than any other state.
There was definitely a while there where...
there was a lot of free out there. And I think, for me, I mean, the online side of my business is just, it's probably more time consuming than the print because it's constant, But for me, being able to offer our readers that print publication that is free, I think has been a really valuable part of our business.
Now, is part of the success of the business model reliant around the online factor having to relate directly back to the print factor and vice versa? They have to relate?
Absolutely, they have to. And then there's another piece of the business model which is just as time consuming as important, which is the social media. So, to be able to, I mean, back in the day when I just worked on Rip It Up, it was just that magazine. That's
all you had to worry about.
And then, that's all we had to worry about. And then it was the digital and now it's the social media. You have to be successful at all three to have a really good business model. And then there's a fourth, which is kind of in there as well, which is, events as well. So we're just creating more and more work for each other. But
it's a nice little growth industry. That's what we like to see.
It is, and who knows what else we're going to be adding on to our plates, moving forward.
Yeah, watch this space, that's for sure. Now,
absolutely.
Farrin, come to you. City Standard. Now, it's a different model, isn't it, for the media? This is young journalism driven. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's actually, City Standard is online, so it's not in the print realm that we've been talking about, but it's an online thing that seeks to give you an experience that is outside of that busyness that Charlotte's been talking about. So it's local stories but told in a really world-class way, and they tend to be longer, more investigative pieces, even short films, things like that. But the thing that's really different about it, apart from the fact that you can relax and kind of lean into the story while you're on there, is also that it's funded by a community of subscribers. So rather than the free advertising-driven model that Charlotte and Josh are working with, and I worked with CityMag for the last 5 years as well, so I'm very familiar with the grind of making sure you are constantly getting readers through and constantly keeping advertisers in. What we do at City Standard is much more about working with our small community of people. All of us put money in, then we all decide together what stories we want to tell next, and then we put the money that we've all contributed towards telling those stories.
And when you say all of you put the money in, who are we talking about? Are you talking about your subscribers?
Yeah.
So they actually get to have a say in what's actually you publish.
Yeah, so it's a kind of an innovation in journalism that we're beginning to see around the world. There's a really successful version of it called De Correspondant, which is out of which country, Josh?
Amsterdam or Holland is the country.
It's definitely a Scandinavian country. But they did the most successful crowdfunding campaign ever done for journalism and raised somewhere in the order of 1.5 million euros to launch this site where all the people who signed up got to have a say in what stories were made, but also how those stories were made, which means you really capitalise. So we're looking at a story. We've got 3 kind of that we're discussing at the moment with the community. One of those is about diseases that people might have that are marginalised, not very well recognised in the medical community, and therefore getting treatment's difficult. And we're just getting out of our small community of 250 people amazing experiences that we can really incorporate into that story that we would never have had access to if it was just our small editorial team working on that story.
It allows you to drill down into the real stories, and that's how that's what people connect to.
Absolutely, and when you begin to see the human side to a big story, I think that's when you can really learn something new, and I think at its core that's probably what media should be about.
Look, Kerry has called from Modbury, and she's got a question. Hi, Kerry.
Hello to everybody. My question comes back to the presentation of your papers, in that I've got several members of the family that have got Asperger's. I've got other connections that have problems with reading where the like, for example, white print on a yellow page or yellow background, a white print on a grey background, that with there being 132 different colours available in the colour spectre, that the dark colour swallows up what you're printing in white, and there's no way you can read it. I don't have that particular problem, but I can empathise with my family members that do.
Absolutely, Kerry.
And it's just a waste of time even printing it if you're not going to have it so it can be read. And I'd like somebody to work with the people that have children that have dyslexia. That's where the problem stems from. That they could make some sort of basic rule that you just don't print certain print on certain colours.
Really good point, Kerry. It is an interesting point, isn't it? It's not something, you sort of stop and think about, but you guys in the publicity...
It's definitely something that's been raised with us. It was someone with dyslexia who said that just even black and white text reversed out of the black background was much harder to read. And we'd never thought about that, but that was a long time ago. And I think we definitely try and avoid those situations of legibility and making sure the contrast is high. Probably we're a bit guilty of printing the text size is a little bit too small. So that's something we need to review
common,
for even people with eyesight issues and stuff. But it's very interesting and something you have to think about.
It's something I think that if we could begin teaching graphic designers about it in their education at TAFE or at university, I think that would be really valuable. I worked for a little while with now former politician Kelly Vincent, and we went through a process building her website where we were attempting to make it accessible for all people's needs, and it was very difficult. Just because the expertise in the web design team didn't exist. So I think that it's a really good point that Kerry raises.
It is, and look, it's something us in the media we've always had to deal with, having that understanding and marrying the practical output with the emotional and the creativity. That's the fine line, and that's, I guess, where you sort of the editor or the sub-editor steps in.
Yeah.
But it's not always a difficult one. Faye is also on the line. We'll take your call in a moment, Faye. We're talking to Joshua Fanning, Farrin Foster and Charlotte Chambers about some great publications that are thriving in Adelaide at the moment. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. It's 9 minutes away from 2 o'clock. Don't forget, after 2 o'clock, Dr. Derek McNair will be here to take your calls about all of your pet issues. We've got in the studio with us at the moment, Farrin Foster from City Standard, Joshua Fanning, who's the publisher of a local magazine called CityMag. I'm sure you've heard of that. And Charlotte Chambers is the founder of print and online magazine called Kiddo. And we're basically discussing a very, very interesting fact that we probably have more of these types of magazines floating around the Adelaide environment than a lot of the other bigger capital cities in Australia. Again, it makes South Australia unique, doesn't it? And it's something to be very proud of. Faye has called in from Windsor Gardens. Hello, Faye.
Good afternoon to the both of you. I'd like to back up the last lady with her comments, because she mentioned about colour contrast, and this is what I'm more in with, because when you have a vision impairment, and I know I'm not alone when I say this, because if it's an online thing, you need to have colour contrast. You don't just put two light colours together any more than you put two dark colours together, even grey and black. For example, you've got to have two, one of each, one type of thing. And when I'm using something, I sort of try to stick to the black and white. I mean, you can say use yellow and black, for example, or you can use red and white. We won't go into my football team, but just the colour.
No, we won't, Faye. No, we'll leave that. That's a really good point, Faye. But I think we've got some good news for you, Charlotte. For example, with your magazine Kiddo, if you don't like what you see actually on the paper, you can go online.
Yeah, so we do our best to convert most of the print publication to online and digital pieces. So there are, I suppose, a lot more opportunities and options for visibility and readability online as well. So as well as, extra content that's not in the magazine. So it's always good to kind of keep your eye on the website as well.
And Farrin, I guess with you, your City Standard, you can always zoom into your print and so forth, can't you, online?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the great things that has come with digital media, is that ability for people to use their devices to make it more accessible for them to read whatever's being published in City Standard. It's definitely you can get it in as close as you want there, and we're always trying to do our text pretty clearly.
Good. This one's for all of you. Caller Jane has called in off air. She wasn't able to chat to us directly. She says, what does the panel think of the media journo opportunities for children with autism?
It's a very specific question.
It is a very specific question, but it is an issue, isn't it?
It's interesting as well.
The autism scale is becoming more and more common.
Absolutely, but I think media journo opportunities for anyone are pretty limited in 2018. But of course, I think there should be support for people with all kinds of needs to get into the field.
And that's probably with this such a specific scenario, the world's your oyster. I'm sure there are autistic journalists and media brands out there. I think we're all very committed to being local and exploring local stories in that sense, but certainly nothing's to stop someone with talent going worldwide, getting on YouTube, changing what the natural expectation is of the media and a journalistic opportunity. I think the future will be a lot about making your own opportunities. Us three have all made our own opportunities, and I think really that's the example, is if you want it, then maybe you've got to start it. And if it doesn't work, even after a year, having started something, that'll be recognised by other media businesses, and they'll look to hire you because you've got something extra, get up and go.
Yeah, you've got a track record. It's interesting, isn't it? We're down to a one, and we have been for quite some time, we're down to a one newspaper town, which is not uncommon these days. The sheer fact that you guys are being so successful with the area that you're exploring, does the future look good for you? You're confident?
You have to be.
Yeah. Gee, you should have seen the looks I got around the room then. What are you saying, Alan?
Have you talked to people in the independent media before, Alan? I worked for the Independent Weekly back when it was the second paper in the one paper town, and when that morphed into In Daily, I think it was a sad day that the print second option wasn't there, but In Daily's gone from strength to strength since that time and has become a really good second option. So I guess seeing that, and also seeing other examples like Charlotte and Kiddo, and there's a good camaraderie in the independent media scene, so I think we keep each other confident.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing about the one newspaper town, is that they kind of pretend we don't exist, but we all get along really well. And I think we have to. And I think that's really a different attitude for Adelaide.
Josh, safety in numbers.
Yeah, collaboration and talking about print in a really generous way, and always talking about print as the medium and how it itself has value, not just the journalism, not the design, not the photos, but all of these things and how they live together.
And you're all presenting an opportunity for all of us to have another voice. That's what we've got to keep on bearing in mind, don't we?
And Adelaide's really good at supporting, the little thing that's emerging and sprouting. So I think that we've all in our different endeavours really benefited from the community, like swinging in behind us and being a supportive place. Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Well done to all of you. That's Joshua Fanning, who's the publisher of CityMag, Farrin Foster, who's with City Standard, and Charlotte Chambers, the founder of the print and online magazine, Kiddo. All great publications, and all ones we should be very, very proud of here in South Australia. Well done. Keep up the fight, guys.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Good on you. Okay, stay with us. Dr. Derek...